I wanted to talk Nico Collins. Josh wanted to talk Tank Dell. Rich has been in on both of these guys for quite a while, so instead of trying to separate them, we're combining them both. Both players go 11 picks later in sleeper ADP than we do in underdog ADP. And this feels like it would have been so much simpler without the Texans trading for Stephon Diggs. A year ago, Nico Collins was going at pick 135 overall. He finished as the wide receiver 13 in half PPR points per game. Tank Dell went at pick 177 on underdog. These guys were absolutely two of the stories of 2023, but it felt like the Texans offense still has another gear to reach. Rich, I'll come to you first on this. Do you think Nico Collins can pay off his ADP going at 16th overall?
I think he can. I think he needs a lot of things to go right for him to pay off. But I mean, you can say that about the whole bunch of guys in this second round. It feels like he's expensive, and we're looking at how he produced without Tank Dell in that offense. And obviously, they've then added Stephon Diggs and expecting him to just continue on that pace. I feel like the gap between all three of these wide receivers in this offense should almost be negligible. And I can't get my head round wide receiver 11 prices for a guy that could end up being the third target in this offense.
How about you, Josh? How are you playing this Texans wide receiver room as a whole?
Maybe I'm just off my rocker, but I'm just taking both ahead of Stephon Diggs at this point.
Yeah.
Like, love that Nico Collins is the mold, but I also love that Tank Dell breaks the mold in terms of his frame and his size. And like, look, whenever you watched him run routes, was there ever a point where you thought that his size came in as an issue? Not to me, because of just the vertical stem, the downfield speed that he threatens these guys with, and he runs one of the best out routes, in the league. I mean, 33 first downs last year on 47 catches. He had six top 20.
Good.
Yeah, 6 top 20 finishes for the entire season. Wide receiver 16 in points per game. And we're able to get him as the wide receiver, 25, 26, 27 right now this entire summer. And everything seems totally fine from his injury. It's just, to me, like, we're going to see a major shift in how Bobby Slowick calls his offense. But what I've already seen is CJ Stroud throwing to Nico Collins on these deep crossers. And I've already seen CJ Stroud throwing bombs to Tank Dell. And what I haven't seen is CJ Stroud with an aging, most likely declining, not no, that he's out to pasture, but declining Stephon Diggs. And so I just want to take the two players who are on the ascension versus the guy who's on the downward spiral.
Yeah, that's generally how I've been approaching it. Like, when it comes to best ball, I've got, I'm above the market on Nico Collins. I'm above the market on Tank Dell. But Stephon Diggs, it's kind of like one of those, if I need a wide receiver, if I've been pushed out and it's like, I'm not quite ready to reach further down the draft board, then I will take Stephon Diggs. And I don't want to be complete zeros on him. If you drafted in a couple of hundred teams, there are very few players in the first 3-4 rounds this year who I want to be at a complete zero on. But Stephon Diggs, just to me, is a 5% player. I don't see the need to get aggressive on him outside of one report from a Texans beat reporter who said that Stephon Diggs looked like the wide receiver one there. Generally, most of the good reports seem to be around Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Josh, in terms of, as Rich touched on, we've seen a lot of stuff when Tank Dell and Nico Collins weren't necessarily on the field at the same time together. Do you think it's possible that these two guys in particular, if we're all a little bit further down on Stephon Diggs, do you think that these two wide receivers going at 16 and 34th overall can both pay off their cost?
Yeah, this is just anecdotal, and I should have looked this up in preparation for the show, but I feel like when both were on the field, when they did overlap, we saw Tank Dell have some better weeks, and we saw Nico Collins have some better weeks. It wasn't hey, if he leaves, and this guy, that's when he has his monster time, so on and so forth. I just think that this is a sweet offense that is going to get even healthier along the offensive line. And what I was talking about with the changes, I mean, this team was like 21st or 22nd. I can look up the exact number in 11 personnel usage. We know that Bobby Slowick use a ton of fullbacks and tight ends, and it was advantageous for them last year because of the offensive line issues. And It gave them extra max protection. And so that allowed really so often just 2 deep crossing routes over and over and over again. But I think Bobby Slowick is smart enough that he understands that, hey, my wide receiver room is a lot more talented than my tight end and fullback room. And so he's just going to change the way that this team plays. I think that is a nice trickle down effect to Joe Mixon because that gives him some wider boxes to attack. But I do wonder if we're going to see the same exact plays that we saw last year. That was, under center, deep play action, hit the back foot, launch it 17 yards on the field, because that hits a bit differently with 3 wide receivers without that same formation blocking threat on top of it.
Yeah, and just gone back to the Nico Collins slide there, because you can see the Texans passed on first downs at the 6th lowest rate last year. That has to change. Everything you've kind of been saying there, Josh. Right. Just feeds into it. And if you are drafting one of these Texans wide receivers much more aggressively than the rest, I want you to let us know in the comments, because it's the season of giveaway. We are currently giving away $100 in cold hard cash, 12 months of premium access to our Discord, as well as $25 for our merch store. All you've got to do to be in the mix is just leave a comment on any of our videos this summer, and we will get you into that draw as we close in on 3,000 subscribers.